A key aspect when you're learning how to read music is intervals. It's a common sort of misconception that learning the note names is like the key to unlocking the power of reading music. However, a wee bit of secret sauce is understanding intervals and how to recognise them. Before we go into the numbers related to intervals, I just want to talk about two basic types of interval. It doesn't matter if it's a second, an octave, a third, or whatever. You need to know the difference between the two different types. Okay, so if we've got our staff, and as I said, if we've got two notes, one here and say one here, then this is known as a melodic interval, which is essentially you play one note and then you play the next one. The other one that we're interested in would be, if I draw another staff here, 4, 5, is when they're one above the other. Okay, and this is known as a harmonic interval. If I go right back to basics, then it's also important to know, and when you're doing intervals, the difference between the two different types of note that you get. Okay, so I covered this in another video. However, this is a space note and this is a line note. It's good to understand what they both are when it comes to recognising intervals, because you need to understand when you're moving from one type of note to another, then how, you know, what they are will tell you what sort of, I'll give you a rough idea what sort of number it's going to be. One last thing before we start going into intervals as well is the order that we read them in. We always take intervals from the lower note, and that doesn't matter whether it's the first note or the second note in the interval. So if I do this, and I've got a melodic interval here, then we take the interval from that note. All right. If I take that out and we've got an interval here, then we still take the interval starting from the lower note. It doesn't matter what order it's in. Okay, before I start doing a breakdown of some of the early intervals that you'll encounter when you first start learning how to play music, if you've got any questions, please fire them in below, or any comments. If you like the video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be a bonus. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to cover 3 different intervals today. As I said, the ones that you'll encounter when you first start playing. The first one's unison, next one's the second, and then we're going to go into the thirds. All right. So if I just first of all talk about a unison. Now, another name for unisons is some people call them sames, and well, that kind of explains, I suppose, gives the game away a wee bit. Anyway, so if we have a note here and then we move to a note here, then because it's exactly the same note, we call that a sames or a unison. The second interval I want to talk about is seconds, funnily enough. What we've got is, if we've got our staff here and we start with a line note, if we move up to the space above it or to the space below it, then that's an interval of a second. If we have a space note and we move to the line above it, that's a second, or the line below it, that's also a second. Right. Now, what I've shown you here is melodic seconds. There's a wee bit of confusion when people first start reading music when they see harmonic seconds, because they can almost be like badly written melodic seconds, right? And they would look a bit like this. And if I was to not use semi-breves, it probably looks even worse actually. If I was to use minims, you'd have that one stem just dropping down from the middle. Now, that's because if I was to actually try and write a second, it would look a bit like this, which is really untidy. Never mind my handwriting, I mean, that's bad enough. But if we, you know, you can see the notes are really crammed, which is why you'll see them, they're just next to each other. Okay, third interval for today is, yeah, thirds. These ones look a bit easier than the old seconds. So if I give you the staff again, this is when you move from a space note to the space above it, or the space below it, or a line note to the line above it, or a line below it. So let me just show you. So this here, if I'm in a space and I go down to this next space below it, then that's a third. And if I go up to the space above it, then that's also a third. Now the same goes for lines. If I'm on a line and I go up a third, I end up on the line above it. Or if I go down a third, I end up on the line below it. Okay. Fortunately, with thirds and bigger intervals, we can write harmonics right above each other, because it doesn't get crammed and kind of end up on top of each other. If you like this video, then I've got a playlist with lots of kind of early concept theory that'd be worth having a look at. They're short videos, so they're worth checking out. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you soon.